My name is Robert Kent, and I'm the owner of House of Forge. We're a small golf shaft company out of San Diego. All of our shafts are made by Matrix, who make the Ozic shafts, and all of our shafts are made here in the United States. Our niche is long drive. That's the proving ground for golf equipment, just like NASCAR racing is for automotive products. It's a place where you can prove that your driver shafts are accurate and hit the ball at the maximum distance, and hopefully our performance here will translate into sales in the general marketplace for the average golfers who all are looking for more distance.
So tell me how you got into long drive.
I got into long drive by accident. I owned a small boutique golf company called House of Forged, which was kind of a museum quality boutique business that catered to forged iron enthusiasts who are a dying breed. And by accident, my buddy Phil Carmelich turned 55 and said he wanted to compete in long drive, and he identified me as the golf guy to get his equipment. And so I started out buying equipment and buying wholesale and discounted items, and that got me started. And by accident I got into buying our own shafts from Taiwan, and later made a deal with Matrix, who pretty much is the Rolls-Royce of shaft companies. And together we've designed some shafts, which first year we brought them out, they won, and we've won 2 successive years, and this year we swept all 3 divisions. So it's turned out to be a fun and exciting business.
What sort of things do you learn from long drive and building shafts for long drive that you couldn't learn building regular shafts?
Long drive is just taking one part of the game to an extreme, namely the driver, 1 club out of 14 clubs. I mean, everybody says you drive for show and putt for dough, but it's not really accurate. If you don't hit a good drive, you're going to be putting to save your skin. But if you can hit a big drive down the middle, you're in great shape to get an easy par or get a birdie. So it is hugely important, and gaining more distance or being more accurate is going to be helpful to any golfer. And fortunately, with these long drivers, we take this to the nth degree. Whereas the average guy can hit the ball 250 yards, many of these guys can hit the ball 400 yards. More than 50-75% farther. So obviously the tolerances for error are much smaller, and we're critically working to build shafts which will achieve the maximum in distance and yet be accurate, because in long drive you have a narrow grid that you have to hit into. So this teaches us through long drive what we need to do for the average golfer to give him distance and accuracy.
What are 2 things that the average golfer doesn't know about shafts that they should know?
I think the 2 biggest things about shafts that people don't know is that, first of all, the shaft is far more important than the head, because the heads are all under the same tolerances. They can only have a 0.83 coefficient of restitution. They're really built to be able to only go so far. All of them are made with titanium or titanium composites, and it's more a matter of personal preference than anything else. So first of all, if you're looking for performance, you really should be looking to the shaft rather than the head. As far as the other thing about shafts, what most people don't realize is, unfortunately, the large golf companies do not put a tremendous amount of money into the shafts. I won't say they're poorly constructed, but they're not top of the line, and you can buy a better shaft that is significantly better than what you have. We've tested many OEM shafts against our shafts, and these days you can test them in the same heads. The R9 TaylorMade and other heads have adapters, so you can quickly take shafts in and out, and we can very easily show people either in real world or on a launch monitor that they're going to get 10, 15, 20 yards more from our shaft, which is superior.
Excellent. How does somebody go about figuring out whether they need a regular shaft or a stiff shaft or a senior flex? What are the key things that someone needs to think about in terms of what type of shaft they should select?
Well, when people are selecting shafts, most of the shaft companies are going to give you a 65 gram shaft, and many of them are going to offer an ultralight shaft, with the argument being that a lighter shaft you're going to swing faster and the ball therefore is going to go farther. That isn't necessarily the case. Fitting people to golf shafts is part science and part voodoo. It's trial and error to some extent, but you can actually take people whose swing speed will be higher with heavier weight shafts and other people who will be lower with lighter weight shafts. So people are different. You know, many of the big component companies like to set numbers in terms of swing speed, in terms of what will fit the person, but those guidelines are so generic and so general that you're dealing with something that's going to work for 70% of the people. But the point is, if you're going to spend your hard-earned money on buying a shaft, it should be properly fitted and not to you personally, and not the matter of guesswork. So normally, if you go into one of the club makers, and they're top club makers in every major metropolitan area, they'll take the time to fit you on shafts in terms of the weight of the shaft, the flex of the shaft, the bend point of the shaft, and they can optimize your situation. Obviously, if you're dealing with better or lesser shafts, that's going to be the governing factor. But fitting is something that has to be done through trial and error. It can't be done by reading on the internet specs and determining that you need a certain bend point, a certain level of torque. It just won't work.
So tell me just a little bit more about House of Forged and what makes a House of Forged shaft special or somewhat unique.
Our shafts, for 3 straight years, have proved that they're the best shafts on the planet. We not only won the Open Division this 3rd straight year, but we swept all 3 divisions. And in the Open and Senior Division, we took 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 5th. Every major shaft company other than Mitsubishi produces a long drive shaft. So we're not competing in an environment of small companies like ourselves. We're beating the biggest companies in the world. The reasons our shafts are better, or even a layman can understand this quite simply. Previously, most shaft companies build their shafts in the United States, then they moved to Mexico because it was cheaper, and then they moved to Taiwan and China. Now they don't even make them in China because it's too expensive. They make them in Bangladesh and Vietnam, of all places. Obviously, if you're going to entrust the care of the building of the shaft to people who've never made shafts before, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to spend top dollar for the highest quality graphite and to spend too much time on your engineering of that product. So that, in a simple sense, tells you we insist that ours be made by Matrix, who are acknowledged as the Rolls-Royce of shaft companies. Their engineer, Daniel Yu, is acknowledged as being a genius at making shafts. And what we learned through making the long drive shafts applies across the board to people using a shaft just to play a normal round of golf.